welcome to a new Knitted by Whitney video. This is the third in my knitted wedding series, and it is the first of hopefully 2 pattern roundup videos. I'm very excited to be bringing this video to you today because I don't think I've ever seen these patterns brought together in this way before. And I know that sounds really vague and mysterious, but trust me, we'll get there. I wanted to first touch on my lovely apparel today. It has been a few weeks since I had my bridal shower, and I'm wearing some of my trappings that I got to wear at the bridal shower. My lovely maid of honor gave me this veil and headband, but my mother-in-law has given me this really cute t-shirt that says bride to be, and of course the I in the bride is a giant diamond, and it's so fun. I love it so much, and I really can only wear it for the next few months before it's out of date because we're getting married very soon. And I am doing this series of videos for my knitted wedding to kind of bring you along for the ride and sort of help me put together some really fun videos all centered around my wedding. And I know it sounds kind of crazy and stressful to be doing that, but honestly, I'm having a lot of fun with this, and I do have exit plans if it no longer is fun and exciting for me. But without further ado, let me count down my top 25 size-inclusive wedding patterns for the bride. That's right, I have put together 25 size-inclusive patterns that you can wear on the day of your wedding as the bride. I am super excited about these patterns. So I have broken down my list into 6 different categories: wedding dresses, wedding cardigans, things to wear over your wedding dress, wedding shawls, what to wear the morning of your wedding, and wedding accessories. I know, crazy list, lots of things to get through, but I'm very excited to share them with you. So let's get started with wedding dresses. And the reason that I pulled some patterns that you could knit as a wedding dress is because there are some really great options out there if you want to DIY your wedding dress. Now, that option didn't really appeal to me, even though we are getting married in October when it can be a little cooler here. But I did not want to knit my wedding dress. I wanted to buy my wedding dress. But if you really want to have a handmade wedding dress, these options might be something you like. I was inspired to put this together as well by a YouTuber and Instagrammer who I think her handle is Kutova Kika, and I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. If I was wrong, I will include her handle down below. I'll include her handle down below anyway, just because I probably butchered the pronunciation and you probably can't figure out what I said anyway. But Kika actually created her own wedding dress for her wedding last year, I think it was, and I absolutely adore it. I watched her whole vlog series about making the dress. She decided to make a really intricate knit and crochet dress 4 months before her wedding. The dresses that I have picked out are a lot less stressful than that because, let's be honest, the 4 months leading up to your wedding, you have way too much on your mind to start creating a dress from scratch that is super intricate at that time. So I picked out some easier options to do for your wedding dress. Number 1 on this list is the Augustine's number 21 sweater dress. This is a pattern that I have made myself, and although I don't have my version anymore, I still think it's a great pattern. I would really like to remake this at some point because I had a great time making this pattern, and I loved how nicely it fit, other than the boo-boos that I made. I think this would be a stunning winter wedding dress, and it's definitely going to keep you nice and toasty because it has a nice high neckline, long sleeves, and a fairly long skirt. Now, if you would rather have a full-length skirt than the shin length that the pattern indicates, that's a very easy modification to do by just adding more length before you do that bottom lace border. I also think this would be super cozy with whatever yarn that you chose. You could do a really nice cozy wool, or you could do a blown yarn so that you have some nice lightness to the dress, or do something really crazy and hold multiple strands of mohair together or suri. I just think that would be super cozy. That fuzziness would just feel really cozy and it would look really, really special for your wedding. And of course, if you get to your reception and you're very warm, you could always change into a non-wool dress for your reception. Speaking of mohair dresses, my second choice for a wedding dress is the cloud bow dress. This is such an ethereal dress, and I can envision this in two ways for a wedding dress. Of course, the dress already has this really nice, almost floor length to the skirt, but because it's knit with one strand of mohair, it's very see-through. There's really no other way to say it. It's very clear to see what you're wearing underneath that dress. But you could use that to your advantage and wear a really nice slip underneath the dress and keep that see-through style to the yarn. Or you could hold multiple strands of mohair together or just hold a thicker, fuzzier yarn. So for example, Drops Brushed Alpaca is a suri yarn, but it's technically a DK weight or even a worsted Aran. I think the company technically says it's an Aran weight. I think it works really well as a DK weight yarn, but you get that same lightness and fluffiness that you would get with mohair, but the fibers are fuzzier and they sort of fill in those holes made by the stitches a bit better. So if you wanted to have a less see-through version of the cloud bow dress, I would just hold mohair doubled or use something like the Drops Brushed Alpaca so that it's not quite so see-through. But I would still recommend wearing something underneath that dress just in case it's still not opaque enough for your taste. The third wedding dress that I am sharing on this list is the Love Magic dress. This is such a fun dress, and I can definitely see this for a boho chic bride. That's a really popular style among wedding dresses right now. People want things that are kind of ethereal, something that they could see themselves wearing in a field with lots of flowers, or if it's sunset and you have those gorgeous colors in the sky. Also, you get to play around with these really fun wide sleeves. So there are two different sizes for the bell sleeves. You don't necessarily need to have those really, really big dramatic ones. You can have a slightly less dramatic bell sleeve as well. Although the pattern sample for this dress shows it as a mini length, which would be so freaking cute if you wanted to have that length as your wedding, it would be very simple to just knit the skirt to the length that you would like if you would like a floor length wedding dress. So those are the three wedding dress options that I am sharing that are all size inclusive. The next category is wedding cardigans, and this one particularly speaks to me because, if you don't already know, I am knitting a cardigan for my wedding and a matching one for my maid of honor, and I am working away on that, I promise. But I am particularly excited to share these options because this is something that I'm working into my own wedding day style. Number 4 on this list, and the first of the wedding cardigans, is the Floral Grace Bolero. This is such a classic style to wear with a wedding dress. I know that it's kind of a 2000s, 2010s style, but it's also kind of a classic style that's pretty timeless because it also kind of harkens back to the 1950s and 1960s cropped wedding jackets that women would wear with their dresses. So I think this is a pattern that is very classic to go with your dress. This pattern also features some absolutely beautiful, intricate lace, especially on the back of the jacket, and some delicate beading. It's so classy, it's so delicate and feminine, and I think it would be a beautiful addition to a wedding dress, particularly if you are wearing something with no sleeves or just tiny spaghetti straps. I think this would give you a nice little extra bit of warmth, especially if you're getting married on a cool night or if you're getting married outside of the summer season like myself. Number 5 on this list is the cardigan that I'm making for my wedding, and that is Romance. I am adoring making this pattern. I'm having such a great time. I'm loving every single stitch. It's going really nice and smoothly, and it just seems to fit me so nicely. I can't give my full review yet because of course I haven't finished it, but I absolutely love it. There are 2 different sleeve options for this cardigan. You could do the nice subtle balloon sleeve, or you could also do a tapered sleeve. But what sets this pattern apart for me is that delicate crocheted edging, which, yes, if you don't knit, that's going to be a bit of a challenge, but I have looked at some videos for this particular technique and it's not as scary as it looks. It's a pretty simple one that only uses single crochet and double crochet. So if you want to get into crochet, this might be a great way of doing that. Or if you're me and your maid of honor is learning how to crochet, you can just ask her to do the edging for you. I feel very lucky that I can get her to do the crocheted edging for me, but I do think that sets this pattern apart and it looks absolutely beautiful. Number 6 on my list is the Whitmore cardigan. This is a beautiful lace yoked cardigan that just screams elegance to me. Now this is a pattern that I was introduced to by Knits by Mandy. She's made her version of it and she has been begging me to make my own version. I will make one at some point, I promise, Amanda, but it's just not in my list quite yet. But I think this would make an absolutely beautiful wedding cardigan. Can you imagine seeing all of that yoked lace in a pure white or in a cream color? Oh, I just love the idea of it. And I also think that it would keep you nice and toasty without being over warm because of that nice lace around the collar. Also, something that I forgot to mention about these wedding cardigans, not necessarily the Floral Grace Bolero, but with the Romance and the Whitmore and the next few that I'm going to be talking about, is that you can also take the opportunity to put some really beautiful buttons on these cardigans and make that pattern really specific to your wedding look. You could even use some buttons that have maybe been in your family as you're something old. I just think that would be such a sweet little gesture to include with your knitted cardigan for your wedding. Number 7 on my list is Amandir, which I hope I pronounced correctly. This is such a beautiful wedding cardigan, and what I love the most about this is that beautiful V-neck and the way that the lace sort of goes along the edges of the V-neck and continue down the front of the cardigan. I think that looks very elegant, and the simple style of the rest of the cardigan would really suit any wedding dress style. Now, I know for myself, I'm picking a cardigan that the neckline of that cardigan matches your wedding dress, but I also think particularly with Amandir, because it is a lower V-neck, it would look equally as nice with a dress that has sort of like just a straight cut neckline, kind of like if you're wearing a strapless wedding dress. I think that would really complement that as well. Number 8 on this list was specifically designed as a wedding cardigan. It is Rosa Bridal. I love this cardigan because of its simplicity. I think this pattern would look absolutely gorgeous over a minimalist wedding dress. I'm thinking specifically of a 90s chic silk dress with little tiny spaghetti straps. Can you just imagine this cute little cardigan over Caroline Kennedy's wedding dress? Oh my gosh, the tiny little spaghetti straps, that beautiful floor length classic silk dress. Very, very chic. Love that look. Now, number 9 on my list kind of straddles the line between wedding cardigans and things that you can wear over your wedding dress. It is the Zoja wrap cardigan. I absolutely adore this cardigan, and I was very, very tempted to make it for my wedding dress. The only reason I didn't is because it is a more challenging pattern, and I am already kind of stressed about wedding planning and everything. I knew trying to do a challenging knitting pattern on top of that wouldn't be a great combo for me, but this is definitely on my list of things to make. I absolutely love that crossover style. I think that is extremely sexy, and I think that goes really nicely with a lot of wedding dresses, particularly V-neck or sweetheart necklines. But I also love that because it's a wrap style, you can really cinch it in tight and have a really nicely form-fitting cardigan over your wedding dress. I just think that would look super stunning. Now, if you're also like me and you like girly details, that big bow is calling your name. In fact, that is a big enough bow that I think even Esme Young would adore that bow. And because it is a wraparound design, you could either tie it in the front and have all that drama in the front, or tie it in the back and have a nice little surprise on the back of your wedding dress. Either way, this is going to be a really lovely, cozy cardigan. And this one is actually knit using that same drops brushed alpaca that I'm using for my wedding cardigan. And I just think it's the perfect balance of softness and coziness, but also lightness and airiness. Now we get to the category of things you can wear over your wedding dress that are not cardigans. And you'll see what I mean when I show you the patterns from this section. Of course, the first pattern I'm going to share with you of this category is by one of my favorite size inclusive designers. And this pattern has actually been blowing up on Instagram and TikTok. And you'll see why when I show you. It's the Wrap Me Up Sweater Scarf. This is such a cool pattern. I have actually knitted this pattern, but unfortunately mine did not work out. But I know it was because of my yarn choice. My yarn was just way too slippery and it did not hold its shape very much. I really want to make this again, and I want to use mohair or like really rustic-y wool, something that's gonna like really hold its shape for me. But this is something that I've seen a lot of brides make for their weddings, and it always looks stunning. It's a really nice, simple stockinette project as well. So if you're getting close to your wedding and you just need to whip up something and you don't want to think very much about it, this is fairly simple. You just have the two ribbed arms and then you have the stockinette body portion of the wrap style. And there's also two different ways that you can wear this. You could either have the crisscross in the front, which is what I would do if I had a V-neck or a sweetheart neckline, or you could have the cross in the back if you want to keep your collar nice and cozy and show off some nice back detailing to your dress. Now, Knititude has designed more than one version of this sweater scarf, but I'm only sharing two of them in this video. The classic one, which I just showed you, and the wrapped up in cables sweater scarf. This one really appeals to me because I am an absolute romantic. I love anything that has florals or has some really beautiful detailing like lace and cabling together. I am a sucker for that kind of stuff, and I just think this one is so stunning. My favorite version that I've seen of this version is someone who did it in a really deep red, and they did it for Valentine's Day, and I just thought it was so beautiful and so stunning, and it just screams romance to me. So I think if the plain wrap me up sweater scarf is just not detailed enough for your particular style, the wrapped up in cables might be. And if I was to knit one of these for my wedding, I would pick the cabled one, but that's a personal choice. And I think these are both stunning options for something that you could wear over your wedding dress that is not a cardigan. Now, the two sweater scarves are not the only option that I have for something to wear over your wedding dress that is not a cardigan. This next one is kind of straddling the line between cardigan and shawl. This is the multi-way stole. And can we just pause for a second, because take a look at the model wearing this project. It's Haida Reid, who plays Elizabeth on Poldark. If you're a Poldark fan, this is her. I thought that was so cool when I found this pattern. I've had this pattern in my list of favorites, I'm going to say probably since I became a knitter in 2015. And I only started watching Poldark maybe like 2017, 2018. And I didn't watch the whole thing because honestly, it's so frustrating when he does everything that people tell him not to do. And I just got sick of yelling at my TV. So I don't watch it anymore. And it's done now. It finished in 2019. But I thought it was so cool when I went to look at this pattern again and noticed that it was the actress Haida Reid from that show. That was so cool. Anyway, let's chat about this pattern because I think this is such a cool pattern. So something that I like about this pattern is even though it's technically a shawl, it can be worn as a bolero. And it's not a one size fits all. This pattern can be modified to be different sizes. There are a few sizes in the pattern, but the instructions are pretty clear on if you need to make it a bit longer, how to do that, which I really appreciate about the pattern. So the only problem with this pattern is that it's a little harder to come by, and that's because it's only available in a book. I was lucky enough that my local library had this book. The book is called Scarves, Shrugs, and Shawls, but it's also published in another book just called Knitted Shrugs. So hopefully if you are interested in this pattern, you could either get it from your local library or maybe you can find the book online. Now, what I love the most about this pattern is that because you sew buttons onto this pattern, there are a myriad of ways that you can style this shawl. Now, I am particularly a fan of the version where it just goes across your body and you have the buttons along the arm. But my most favorite way that this pattern is styled is when it is wrapped around your neck, comes down, buttons along the front, and buttons up the back. It looks like a halter top, but it is so much more glamorous than that, and I just think that would be such a unique way of styling something to wear over your wedding dress. I think this would look particularly nice with any strapless style because it's going to keep your shoulders and your collar nice and cozy and still show off how beautiful your wedding dress is. My next category that I'm going to be sharing with you are wedding shawls. Now I'm going to preface this by saying some of these are not for the faint of heart or the faint of fingers because they use very thin, delicate yarn, very small needles, and they are large. But these are classic wedding shawl patterns that I did not feel that I could exclude from this video. I had to include a few in here because they are so beautiful. And of course, it harkens back to the Shetland lace knitted shawls, which are really, in the knitting world, those are the pinnacle of knitting artistry. And I just think they are so beautiful, and it's really important to keep traditions like this alive in the fiber world. So if this is something that appeals to you for your wedding, maybe your wedding is 2 to 3 years away, maybe you're not even engaged yet and you want to be prepared, you could get started on some of these shawls. The first one I'm going to include is called Wedding Ring. And this one I have included because this is the most classic style that I could find similar to the Shetland lace shawls. And this one is called Wedding Ring because a true Shetland lace wedding shawl can be threaded through the eye of a wedding ring. So this, of course, is my engagement ring, but it's the same size that my wedding ring is going to be. So these shawls are able to fit through this hole. Can you believe that? That is incredible. So what they do once the shawl is knitted is they thread the shawl, they start with one corner, and they just delicately pull it through the ring until the whole shawl has come through. And if it has come through the other side, it is a true Shetland lace shawl. Now, if the wedding ring shawl is a little too much for you to take on, or maybe you would prefer a crescent style versus the rectangular style of shawl, wedding peacock is a great option. And this one is also a free pattern. This one still has lace weight yarn, but the needle sizes are a little bigger than if you are knitting the Shetland lace shawl, and it still creates this beautiful lace weight shawl for your wedding dress. This is one that you just would throw over your shoulders and just kind of have over your arms to keep you nice and cozy and still show off your incredible knitting skills. Now, if the size needle for the wedding peacock shawl is still a little too small for you, check out Shawl for an Art Lover. I would probably pick this one out of all three because this one uses size 6 needles. So that's kind of as small as I go with my knitting. I tend to not use anything smaller than that because my hands start to cramp up like crazy. I also think this one has some really beautiful geometric lace along the edges of the shawl, which I think is a really nice style, particularly if you have kind of a structured wedding dress that would really complement the style of the shawl. Now, the last delicate lace shawl that I'm going to include on this list is the Teardrop Bridal Shawl. I think this one is also just as beautiful as the others and worthy of inclusion because I love that you have one particular repeating lace pattern for the body of the shawl and a different border lace. I also really love the inclusion of those teardrop beads, which I think elevates this shawl just a hair, and I think it would be absolutely beautiful, especially if you have a dress that would complement beadwork. Now, I would never in a million years wear a delicate lace shawl with a beaded or sequined wedding dress because I think you're just inviting disaster with having pulled stitches. But I particularly like this shawl, especially paired with a romantic kind of lacy wedding dress. I think it would be a beautiful complement. Now, the last wedding shawl that I'm going to be including is completely different from all of the other ones that I've just showed you because this one is knit in super bulky weight yarn, and this one is for winter brides. This one is a bit of good luck, which I think would be absolutely stunning as a little faux fur shawl to wear for your wedding. So I would knit this one specifically in a faux fur yarn. My personal favorite is Fable Fur by Knit Picks, but there's also Go for Faux by Lion Brand. And I just think this would shine in a white or off-white furry faux fur yarn. I think it would look very elegant, and you can customize the size so that it fits you better than just a store-bought shawl. The next category that I have is things to wear the morning of your wedding. And I really wanted to include some items with this because I'm not a fan of those big bridal party pajamas and robes that all look alike. You wear them once for the day of the wedding and then they sit in your closet and you probably never wear them again, right? I don't know. I've never been part of a big bridal party. It's not my jam. But I wanted to offer some hand knitted options instead. Starting with the Fifi Feather Robe. I love this pattern. I think it is super fun. I love that it comes in a lot of sizes, and I love that you have options with what you could use for your yarn. So the pattern sample is knit using a velour yarn, which I think adds a really nice level of sophistication to the robe. But you could also choose to make it out of more fuzzier yarn, maybe hold some mohair with a worsted to get the size that you need for the yarn, and have something that's just super duper cozy that you can continue to use after your wedding. And if the faux feathers are not your jam, don't worry, you could always put beaded trim or even no trim at all if it would just get in your way or annoy you on the day of your wedding. But I love that this has some options that you could be totally diva and snazzy, or you could keep it nice and simple if that's more your style. Now, every bride wants to be comfortable, and especially in the morning when you probably have your nerves coming up through your stomach and you just want to make sure everything goes smoothly. You're thinking about everything that has to get done or that needs to happen on the day, and you just want to be really comfortable. I have a pajama set for you. It is the Flutterbutt shirt and Flutterbutt shorts. I think this is such a cute combo. Of course, you could just knit either the top or the bottom, but I think it would be great to knit the two together and have this really cute ensemble piece. I also really love that you could play around with color. So for example, if I was making these for myself, I would do them in a bridal blue color because I love blue, and it could be my something blue for the wedding, or do it in white, be totally bridal, or in any color of the rainbow that you like and just have fun with it. The last pattern I'm going to share with you for something to wear the morning of your wedding is the jersey jumpsuit. This is a really fun pattern that allows a lot of customization. So you could either do the strapless style that is in the pattern, you could add straps, you could add the ruffle edges along the sleeves, you could do pants, you could do shorts, you could do capris, you could do whatever your heart desires. Now, personally, if this is me, I would do a short option just because I might get overheated on the morning, especially, getting your hair done, doing your makeup, getting everything organized. So I would make myself a little romper that would have straps, and I really love those ruffle sleeve edges that go along. So that would be my personal choice, But I also love the idea of making yourself kind of like an ABBA disco outfit that would just be super cozy for lounging the morning of your wedding, waiting for everything to happen, and especially if you need to leave the house and get some things outside of the house, maybe you need to run a few errands, grab some breakfast. You're going to be in this really cozy, comfy outfit, but it still looks like something that you could wear outside of the house. It doesn't really look like pajamas, but you're going to be just as comfortable as if you are wearing pajamas. And moving on to my final category, which are wedding accessories. The first pattern I'm going to talk about in this category are Mary's gloves, which are inspired by Downton Abbey. They are inspired by Mary Crawley, the daughter of Lord Grantham. And I love that this pattern has two different options. You could do either the short gloves or the long gloves. I'm more of a fan of the short gloves, but if you're wearing a strapless style wedding dress, I think the long gloves would look super chic. I particularly love that it has those little pearl buttons just along the wrist of the gloves, and that lace along the edge just looks so stunning. But something that really piques my interest is those little pin tucks along the top of the glove, which I don't have the pattern, so I can't verify how they're done. But I just think that that detail is so beautiful. But what I also like is that this pattern comes in multiple sizes because, let me tell you, I have hands that really do not fit in one size fits all gloves because I inherited my dad's sausage fingers. They are short, they are stubby, they are big. And I know this because I have a very large ring. But I know for a fact that one size fits all gloves rarely fit me, so I really love that this pattern comes in multiple sizes. Now, I'm not sure what you're wearing on your feet for your wedding, but if you are someone who might have some cold feet on the morning, and no, I do not mean figuratively, I mean literally, and you want to wear socks on your wedding, I have some sock patterns for you. I know, can you believe it? I am sharing sock patterns. I don't like knitted socks. I don't like wearing them. I don't like making them, but I know there are a lot of you out there that do, so I wanted to share a couple options for you. The first of which is Claire socks. These ones really stick out to me because that lace across the top of your foot just looks so beautiful and elegant that I can't believe I'm saying this, but if you are wearing a certain type of shoe that is not a sneaker, these still might look really nice. I know, can't believe I've said it. Socks with shoes that are not sneakers might be nice with this particular sock pattern. So let me explain. I know that there's a really big trend in the fashion industry of pairing socks with high heels. And although that's not my jam, I can appreciate the style, and I think there are ways that you could wear it that would be really nice. And especially if you're wearing a shorter wedding dress, maybe you're having more of a casual wedding and you're wearing a tea-length dress or maybe even a short dress and you want to have some funky socks to wear with your dress, I think these socks would look not only elegant and delicate and beautiful, but having that contrast trim of the mohair on the ankle would look really nice and allow you to have a bit of yourself in the socks. You could choose your favorite color. You could choose blue as your something blue. Maybe you just want some delicate pink or even just white on white and have some really classic white socks. But I think that this would look really beautiful. And if you're wearing a longer length dress, this could be your little secret at your wedding. Now, if you are having a casual wedding and you're wearing sneakers with your wedding dress, I suggest the Dandelion Mind socks. These ones just really call out to my inner child because I was one of those little girls that loved ruffles, loved pink, loved all the girly things, and I just think these socks would be a fun way to keep that sort of style with your wedding day, especially if you're wearing just a normal wedding dress, but you want to have a little bit of fun with your accessories. These socks have the most adorable little ruffle going around the ankle cuff. And I love that the pattern sample has shown colorful socks, because I think this would be a fun way to sort of include a bit of color with your wedding dress if you wanted to do that. Of course, you can absolutely still just have plain white socks. That is totally okay. But if you wanted to be a little more colorful and creative, you could use any color you want. Like I've mentioned a few times already, bridal blue stands out to me, but also how fun would it be if you had hot pink wedding socks? Super fun, right? So I love this pattern for that option. Now the last pattern on my list might be a little divisive of a pattern, and that's because it is a garter. This is eloping, and this is a custom fit garter that is also a free pattern. Now I wanted to include this pattern because there are brides out there that want to wear garters. I am not one of them. I don't like the idea of wearing a garter. I also really don't like the idea of the removal of the garter in front of all of your family and friends. That kind of makes me feel very uncomfortable. But if that's something that you want to do for your wedding and you want to make your garter, here's a great option, especially if you are not part of the one-size-fits-all club. This particular garter is custom sized that you can continue to knit it as long as you need to fit your leg comfortably. And let's be honest, and if you've seen the comedian Eliza Schlesinger, who is one of my favorite comedians, she's done a whole comedy set about garters, and I love how she describes that garter belts come in one size. Shame. I think that is so true, so appropriate, because they are these tiny little scraps of lace that are the size of, in her words as well, a gooseneck. And I don't know about you, my thighs are not the size of a gooseneck. I need something much bigger. So I love the option of being able to knit your own garter belt so that you could have one that fits you perfectly and is not going to cut off your circulation during your wedding. And that is it for my list of my top 25 size-inclusive wedding patterns for the bride. If you are also a bride-to-be, I hope something on this list sparked your interest, or maybe it sparked your interest to go searching for more patterns that you might want to make for your own wedding. This was the third video in my knitted wedding series, and I have linked the other two down below, so I hope you check those out as well. While you're here, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell icon to be notified when my next video comes out. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining me, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this pattern roundup video, and if you would like to see more videos like this, check out more of the ones on my channel as well as my podcast videos. Now, I better get back to working on my cardigan for my wedding because it's coming up soon. So everybody, take care and happy knitting!